Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve, Harmless Rebel. In the background, we are listening to Gojira. This is their album, The Way of the Flesh, or excuse me, The Way of All Flesh. I'm a really big fan of Gojira. This was actually the record store day that I was trying to get a hold of and wasn't able to find. I did end up finding a nice copy of it for 20 bucks. It wasn't the record store day copy, but I don't care. Just really good metal. They're actually a French band. Definitely worth checking out. Give it a listen for a sec. Alright, let's get going. This is going to be a quick punk and metal update. I've run across some pretty cool stuff this week. I just thought I would share it with you. First up, we've got 7 Seconds, and this is the Blast from the Past EP. I don't remember when this one came out, and it's not marked. Oh, there we go. Recorded in Reno, March of '83. They've done a couple versions of this. The original was all black and white, the sleeve, and it's on black vinyl. This was released shortly after, and they did 3 different colors, if I remember correctly. They did translucent green, which is what this one is. They also did translucent blue, and I think there's a red one as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I found this for $9 at one of the local CD warehouses. It's in really good shape, so I picked it up. I'm always looking to add to my punk collection. While I do pick up 45s here and there if I run across something cool, I don't collect 45s with the exception of any of the old punk 45s. So many punk bands, that's what they released in the early 80s. They couldn't afford to have a full LP press, so they pay to get 2 or 3 songs recorded in the studio, and they would do a 200 or 300 copy run, and they would just sell them at their shows and stuff. And that kind of is the history of punk in these days, anyway, early 80s. So anytime I run across any of these old punk 45s, I grab them. The insert was also still there, which I thought was really cool. So, and like I said, the biggest way to tell the difference between the colored ones and the black vinyl is the sleeve. Like I said, any of them with the colored vinyl have blue in the name and on the back, whereas the original was all black and white. So, next up, I showed this briefly in one of my videos last week or the week before, but because it's a punk album, I decided to show it again. There's a different group of people that look at my the everyday postings that I do, and then the actual punk, metal, or country specific. So figured I'd share this one again. This is Rap Music for Rap People, Volume 2. They actually did a couple of versions of this. The first version, if I remember correctly, was Volume 1, obviously, and then Volume 2. I don't remember if the third came out at the same time, but it was actually a double LP with Volume 1 and Volume 2. I've never actually seen that one, but according to Discogs, it's out there. So, regardless, this is a really good album. You can see it right there on the back. You've got the DRI, Dix, Minutemen, the White Lies, Butthole Surfers, JFA, Jodie Foster's Army, Fang, Big Boys, Tales of Terror, and Personality Crisis. This is a really, really good comp. This is more leaning towards, this is more fast-paced metal, all of these songs. This is more of probably a skate punk type of comp, I would call it. It does have the Minutemen, which I don't traditionally consider skate punk, but still, it's definitely more your skate punk type of album, and definitely highly recommended. Next up, we've got the Undertones. And this one, so the Undertones are a Northern Ireland band. They're from the same scene that produced Stiff Little Fingers. That's probably their biggest competitors, and Roofrex, who I'm going to actually do a video on Roofrex by themselves. I think they're actually the better of the bands from that area and time, and I just think they're all around better. And for certain political reasons, they never got as big as Stiff Little Fingers. Oddly enough, two of the members or excuse me, one of the members of Roof Rex is one of the founding members of Stiff Little Fingers, and an additional member joined the band later on. So, but I'll get into the history of that in a future video, and I'll kind of talk about Stiff Little Fingers and the Undertones as well. The big difference between the Undertones compared to Stiff Little Fingers or Roof Rex is Roof Rex and Stiff Little Fingers it spoke more of the politics of the time. You know, that was early '80s was a real rough time in Northern Ireland. Ireland, with the fighting between the Prods and the Catholics. So, and obviously you had the IRA and all that stuff going on. But the Undertones went more towards just teenage life, what it was like to grow up. You know, here comes Jump Boys, Wrong Way, Here Comes the Summer, Get Over You. You know, definitely different than what you were hearing from Stiff Little Fingers and Roof Rex, who were definitely talking about politics. Very good punk album, though. I highly recommend if you see any Undertones albums, if you see any Stiff Little Fingers albums, and definitely if you see the Roof Rex album, pick them up immediately. Next up, we've got the Minutemen. This was their last album before D. Boon was killed in the car accident outside of Tucson. I should say the van accident. They were actually touring for this album. This is Three-Way Tie for Last. This is slowly becoming my favorite Minutemen album. It wasn't. Actually, the first time I heard this, I didn't like it. And the more I listen to it, the more I get into it. The lyrics on this were amazing. This was very anti-war. There's a lot of anti-war and just a great great album. I highly recommend this. And the cool thing about Minutemen is they have a very rock sort of punk. They don't have that hardcore edge that you hear from a lot of the other punk bands. So if you're looking to get into punk, the Minutemen is a really good place to start. So again, this is the one I highly recommend to all of you out there. Next one, man, I have been looking for this album for probably 5 years. Now I know I could have gone online and bought it any time, but that just kind of takes away from, you know, the day that you're flipping through it and you finally found it. It just blows you away. Well, this happened on Wednesday. This is the Sid and Nancy original soundtrack. I would put this probably in the top 5 punk soundtracks. I'm still looking for the Decline soundtrack. I'm also looking for the Suburbia soundtrack and the what's the third one? Suburbia, Decline, and the Repo Man soundtrack. And once I have those 3, that'll complete my punk soundtracks. But this is just a great album. If you haven't seen this movie, it's the movie or the story of Sid Vicious, who was the I guess I would use quotes, the bassist for the Sex Pistols, since rumor is he never really played. They usually had somebody in the background playing. But I mean, this thing's got Joe Strummer, the Pogues, Steve Jones, Pray for Rain, the Circle Jerks. Let's see, John Cale, and even Gary Oldman does a couple of songs on here. Killer soundtrack. Definitely worth having, and I highly recommend the movie as well. So like I said, I was really stoked to find this one. Next up, I just picked this one up a few hours ago. This is Riot, Restless Breed. This is their 3rd album, I think. And Riot, man, you want to talk about a crazy history. Riot is one of the few bands that's out there that has no original members in it. There has literally been 5 or 6 members in every, basically every position in the band. They've had a handful of drummers. They've had a handful of guitarists, singers, bassists. I mean, it's amazing how many people have been through this band. It's also a pretty sad band, too. The lead singer was killed in a carjacking. Either the first or the second lead singer, I don't remember. was killed in a carjacking here in Atlanta. He refused to give up his car, and he took a bullet for it. They've had one member die from cancer, and I believe they have 1 or 2 more members that have cancer right now. But they're still together, and they're still putting out music in one form or another. So, but this is a great album, just a great band. This is probably my second or third favorite from Riot. My favorite's Narita, which is one that most of you are, if you've seen Riot, that's probably the one that you've seen. And you can see on the back, stamp promo, and then pulled it out. It's actually a white label promo. And I picked this up for $8. I was really stoked when I saw it. I mean, it's in near perfect condition. There's a little damage on the bottom right hand or the bottom left hand corner, but not too shabby. Next up is another one I also picked up today. Reach for the Sky from Rat. This is one that I was missing from my Rat collection. This isn't one of my favorite albums. It's got a couple cool songs on it, but this is their album from '88. Again, as you can see, it's in really, really nice condition, so I couldn't pass up on it. This again was $8. So, again, I was happy to see this. Rats in the Cellar is my favorite from Rat. I wouldn't really say that they have any bad albums from this time frame. I haven't heard anything that they've been doing for the last couple of years, simply because I'm not that interested. But all their stuff from the 80s, like I said, I look for that. And then the next two. This is Turbo from Judas Priest. I actually have this on cassette, but this is my first time having it on vinyl, so I was pretty stoked when I saw this yesterday and when I paid for this. $12. And again, this is another stamped promo. I picked this up at Mojo Music in Alpharetta, Georgia. That's probably one of my favorite stores to go to. And still got the original sleeve with lyrics. Great album. I mentioned 5 or 6 videos ago, man. I avoided Judas Priest for the longest time. Something about Rob Halford's voice just drove me nuts. So for years and years and years, I didn't get into him, and I just avoided him. I didn't want anything to do with him. I heard one thing where he's using that high-pitched scream, and that just turned me off. I was like, I just don't like that. And then I started picking up their albums. I found one for a good price, picked it up, and loved it. And now every time I see a Judas Priest album, it's in my hand. So highly recommended. And then last but not least, Killers from Iron Maiden. This one was $18. Let's see if I can show you. Very cool custom label there. Killers is probably my favorite song from Iron Maiden. Again, this is another band like Judas Priest. Something about the vocals. I just never got into Iron Maiden. I've always loved the song Killers, and I've always loved Seventh Son, which I showed a few months ago. I was a fan of that album, but I never really explored much else from Judas Priest. I mean, obviously, their songs I've heard, Run for the Hills, a lot of their hits I've heard just being a metalhead and growing up in the heavy metal community since the early 1980s. I was always around it and always heard it, but just never got into it. And that's another band that I'm slowly starting to get into. So now whenever I find some Maiden on vinyl, and that's another one that I just recently found on cassette as well. So that's it for my update, guys. I wanted to keep this one relatively short, and I didn't do that. But regardless, take care, VC. Thanks for watching, and talk to you next time. Bye.